Hello, I'm Holly B. Welcome to the Health Bridge podcast. Today we are speaking with Bjorn Ekeberg. He's the co-founder and CEO of Recharge Health, creators of the Flex Beam, which is the world's first targeted infrared therapy device designed to naturally accelerate recovery time for active individuals looking to heal injuries, manage musculoskeletal pain, or improve their physical energy. With a PhD in philosophy of science, Bjorn regularly speaks internationally on the universe and the nature of light. He's also a multi talented individual with success in numerous professional ventures. If you are to look Bjorn up on YouTube, you will find all kinds of different videos with him speaking more to that philosophy of science, things like cosmology, Big Bang Theory, and metaphysics. So if that interests you, definitely check him out. Give him a Google search. You'll find all kinds of different talks and information from him on those topics. But today we are diving into red light therapy because it's very trending in the health and wellness world. And everybody's talking about it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody really understands it or knows what it is or how it works on the body. So I was really excited to have him on to talk about how we can use red light therapy correctly, for one, how to differentiate between a red light therapy that actually works versus a device that probably doesn't, but also just how it works on a cellular level in healing, both for acute injuries as well as more systemic issues such as systemic inflammation, organ function, digestive issues, things like that. So, again, we're really going to get into the details. Yes, there's some numbers thrown out there, so you can understand as a reference point the different wavelengths of the different types of red light, just so you can have a better understanding of what you need to know to do red light therapy properly and to actually get benefit of it. But don't be overwhelmed by it. It's fantastic information. And this is a therapy that I think can be very much utilized for long-term therapy. This isn't necessarily a one and done. Granted, you could use it that way for acute injuries and things, but if you're talking autoimmune and just overall health boosting effects, if you're talking about sleep regulation, this is something that can be hugely beneficial if you use it as long-term health maintenance. So, with that, I hope your interest is piqued, and let's dive into this episode with Bjorn. Bjorn Ekeberg, welcome to the Health Bridge podcast, all the way from Oslo.
Norway. Thank you. Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah, I think, let's see, we're in completely different opposite spectrums of red light at the moment. I'm here in San Diego, 9 a.m. I think UVA is probably still up and it's dark there for you. It's nighttime.
Well, it's settling down. So I'm sort of sitting here while the sunset is fading by, I think. Yes.
Beautiful. Well, we're
Yeah.
here to talk about red light. And I really want to just start out by giving kind of a general red light 101, because red light is something that everybody's hearing about now, especially in the US, as you just mentioned before we hit record. And it's totally trending, but that doesn't mean that people really know what it means. They heard the term red light therapy, but how does that actually translate? What is it? Can you break down the differences between the different types of red light, from near infrared, far infrared, all the different terms that we hear when it comes to
For
this.
sure. I will try my best. Certainly at the jungle out there. It's what we're seeing. I mean, I, as part of co-founding a company that has developed our own sort of wearable version of a device that we worked with this technology for about 6 years. Or like 6 years since we founded the company. And when we started, red light therapy was like a niche thing for biohackers and a couple of people who had sort of discovered it. And it was still very much a small thing. And I've seen in the last couple of years, especially in the US, almost every person I meet has heard of it, but everybody's confused as to what it is. So I appreciate the opportunity and interest. Red light therapy, it can mean either of two things. And this is the first confusion point. Red light therapy, as it's most effective and what is usually used in health circles and what biohackers are embracing, etc., for your body or physical health, is red and near infrared light combined. It's just very clunky to say red and near infrared light, so it just got shortened into red light therapy. Then at the same time, something happened in cosmetics when they discovered that red light itself can work brilliantly for the skin. So you can develop a whole range of skincare appliances, like you could shine red light on your face or anywhere on your body. And it will, if it's well made and right wavelengths and dosage and, devil's in the details. But in principle, if you have the right technology, you can really get considerable benefits, like to collagen production, elastin in the skin. People who use it frequently in the right dosage, like they get sort of that younger skin complexion and they definitely notice a difference. There is something to it, but that has created huge buzz around those kinds of things. And I also know there's a lot of inferior products on the market and products that don't work. And that adds to the confusion because people will say, I heard about it. Oh, no, I didn't. I tried it and didn't work. Right. But that's red light. So that's booming right now. If you hear about a face mask or something, that's only red. There's no near infrared in it. Now, near infrared is really the crucial part that for healing. And the reason why is near infrared light is just off the visible spectrum of light. It's an invisible wavelength to us. Everything in the infrared range is invisible to us. But the reason it is just invisible to us is that wavelength is just too long for us to see it with our eyes. But it's there, and it's able to, at that wavelength, a certain window around 800 to 880 nanometers, specifically, research shows consistently that it's able to penetrate the skin. And by penetrating the skin, you can stimulate what's underneath the skin, where you have muscles and tissue and joints and ligaments and bones all layered in. And there's cells everywhere, like that's what your body is made of. And those cells are, again, fueled by what's called the mitochondria. And these are the organelles in your body that are responsible for energy production at the cellular level. And what all the research started indicating, this is decades ago, since this insight came through research, and NASA developed prototypes on this as well to demonstrate that you are able to stimulate the cells to basically work much faster and better and more efficiently. You can feed them more energy. The mitochondria in your cells, they react to these wavelengths, and it's almost like what's called a hermetic stressor. It's a small, like a stimulant that you give it. They respond to that light by basically producing more of the energy and therefore making your whole natural healing process. Your body is already the natural healer, like you have that healing power in you. And with more energy from these sources, it can become better at doing what it's already doing. That's the key principle of red light therapy, aka near infrared light therapy, because you don't get that in a mask or any kind of cosmetic application. You need a powerful near infrared right dosage, and you can penetrate several inches into the body if you do it the right way, right? So you can really stimulate a lot of the mitochondria you have in your cells.
That's a great explanation. So we are talking about the near infrared light. If we're translating this into just outdoors, being outside with the sun, what times of day are we getting near infrared?
Well, actually all times of the day, but it shifts predominantly at sunrise and sunset. When you see the sun is already more red, it is really a shift on the spectrum. So there's, relatively speaking, there's more near infrared relative to blue light at sunrise and sunset, but you're exposed to it at all times. So, I mean, if you think of it this way, the sun is like, I mean, it's the cosmic fireball of energy that fuels everything. We live inside this little tiny bubble in space, perfectly kind of calibrated to shield us from most of the harmful rays and the noise and everything that's generated in space that's curled at us. And all of that energy exists on a spectrum, a really wide spectrum, from like microwaves on one end to like gamma rays, etc. And on the far other side of the spectrum, past the infrared, is a very tiny part of that that we see, that our eyes are adapted to see. But on the range of all of that, we are being hit with all of it. And infrared is usually it's associated with heat. So it's a really wide range of frequencies. And over 50% of the sun's power that we get is in the infrared range. So whenever you have something heating up on the earth and so on, the glow you feel when you watch a sunset or a sunrise, as you made this morning, the color is red, but that warming feeling on your skin, that's near infrared, and then extending into the infrared range. When it gets hotter and hotter, it gets more and more like more heat, right? If that helps.
Yeah, it does. And then where does the UVA and UVB light come in to this? In other words, if people are going to do red light therapy, are they going to get sunburned? I get that
No,
question a
because
lot.
red light therapy device would kind of cut out the UV. So ultraviolet is on the other side of visible light. If you imagine a spectrum from left to right and visible light in the middle, UV is on the other. It's a shorter wavelength. And there are certain frequencies that are associated with like that will like potentially burn and damage skin and can be carcinogenic. Right? But and that is in natural sunlight. This is one of the reasons why we're usually taught, especially in sort of our world culturally, like as relatively like often white people exposed to sunshine, like you should be very cautious, SPF, etc., is because of UV.
Uh-huh.
Right, typically. If you are using red light therapy, you basically eliminated the potentially harmful wavelengths, and you're only focusing on those that actually are. I mean, it might sound strange, but it's sort of a healing frequency, if you will, on the electromagnetic spectrum, that something happens with the body, it interacts with the body just in this bandwidth. Something happens. It's an energy that your body can absorb, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
it actually does on a general basis. If you are out in the sun, we can try to think of it this way, like how much you're getting. If you're out in sunshine for hours and you have lots of skin exposure, you're probably getting as much near infrared from the sun as you would get in one dose of, like, for example, our red light therapy device, right? The sun is the ultimate healer. If you can be outdoors and your skin can tolerate it, like all of that energy is already there in the sun. So what we did with our variable version, and it would be similar to how a panel works, for example, but then at a distance, it's this concentrated those wavelengths. And so you can, in 10, 20 minutes, you can get a dose of what it otherwise would take you sort of half a day out in the sunshine to get, very broadly speaking, but just to give you an idea.
So it's taking it and concentrating it. So we don't need to spend 6 hours outside. We
Yep.
can do this around our busy life schedule, basically.
It's kind of a concentrated dose of sunshine able to like to stimulate your cells.
Love it. Okay. And so you were talking about getting into the near infrared light, getting into the mitochondria of our cells, basically causing a hormetic stress, so a positive stress to stimulate healing and regeneration. And I know that you are not a doctor, and I know that this is not your specialty, but are you aware of any research in how stimulating mitochondrial health can actually start to mitigate some of this dysfunction that might be on a cellular level with people with autoimmune or suffering from different conditions, maybe cancer, things like that?
Yeah, and certainly this is where the research gets interesting. So I'm not myself trained as a doctor. My background is actually philosophy of science. I've studied a lot of science in my day, in physics, especially, but more from a philosophy history point of view. But when I met one of my co-founders, Dr. Julia Frost, who's worked with this technology for 20 to 30 years now in clinics, first through lasers and all of these modalities, and she's seen thousands of patients and is really deep into the research. So I do learn a lot from it, and part of understanding the studies stuff were important for me. So a lot of the most obvious benefits around red light therapy that are the most in the sort of the peer-reviewed literature that clearly establishes are around inflammation specifically. It's probably the most researched part. Some of the effects on muscular repair and performance gains, so especially more in the sports field and and so on. Also quite well studies and very, very impressive results in a lot of them, like 20 to 30% changes in strength and output and mobility and so on if you use it correctly. And things like VO2 max and HRV. A lot of the research is sort of in this direction. There is less on these autoimmune, cancer, etc. Right? So a lot of what we know about it, we're also learning through sort of clinical cases, and this is where Dr. Zulia, my colleague, is a really valuable resource. But I mean, we're talking. I mean, autoimmune can cover a whole range. I mean, how would you say it's largely made up, if I can ask you, in terms of
Sure. Yeah,
qualifying it?
sure. I mean, with autoimmune things, inflammation is one of the biggest issues, right? So I'm looking at ways to reduce inflammation overall,
Yeah.
systemic inflammation. Joint pain is usually a big issue. And then just, I think overall, wanting to create, I see autoimmune disease as an incoherence within the
Yep.
body, within the system. So, how do we create more coherence within the way our cells are relating to each other, the way our organ systems are relating to each other? So, I guess I'm looking to, dive into this research more to find out, is there, some evidence that this can really help on that core level of reducing inflammation, just to reduce pain and reduce discomfort for people that are within the autoimmune spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, certainly at the level of inflammation, for example, is probably the most studied and best documented effect of red light therapy from the early laser iterations to now later LED kind of driven devices. And insofar as autoimmune conditions often involve chronic inflammation and also mitochondrial dysfunction, which leads to sort of dysregulation of the immune system, for example, then red light therapy by supporting this sort of cellular energy production, right? This ATP, this in itself, like by giving the body this energy, you help to modulate the immune response. This is how basically red light therapy works. So you improve your mitochondrial function for each session and then over time cumulatively. And then your body is better able to regulate these inflammatory pathways. And this will reduce flare-ups, for example, and inflammation. So it's common in the studies that Dr. Zulia follows, and her patients typically report better energy, improved sleep patterns over time, and reduced stiffness as a result of this sort of anti-inflammatory effect.
Mhm.
So that's definitely one aspect that will be very helpful. I think it's important to manage expectations that there is no research to indicate it will reverse or completely get rid of an autoimmune condition, depending a little bit on severity. But that it's a significant relief for both for symptoms and really targeting kind of the root cause, or at least this inflammatory response and mitochondrial response, that it can be very, very helpful. But just to not necessarily jump to the
Right.
dream, but this is something that is like a magic miracle thing and your whole condition goes away. I think it's like continual treatment is like it's the likely course, but that it can be a powerful relief.
Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely think that this is a piece of the puzzle, right? When it
Yep.
comes to things like autoimmune disease, they're they're complicated and it takes multiple modalities, multiple, lifestyle changes to really start, I think, making positive effects. And I just want to put it out there that this is a piece of the puzzle that can be very, very beneficial on the journey. Very
Sure.
supportive in maintaining less inflammatory responses in the body.
And I can talk more about how to use it specifically and stuff to achieve the best effects. But you told me before we started this conversation that you've been trying a few different things, red light therapy yourself. What's your own experience with it so far with this technology, broadly speaking?
Sure. I don't know that I can say that I have felt um, some kind of overwhelming difference yet. I've been doing it for about 2 months now, I believe, doing a red light therapy booth. So I'm in a red light therapy booth. I do that for about 20 minutes. It's combined with
So is
Halo.
it boost like what I'm sitting in now, like a big cabinet kind of, or is it a more of
Yes.
a bed?
Yeah. And then it's got a big full body length panel on both sides. So on both
Okay.
sides of me.
Yep.
And then I'm also doing an infrared sauna as well, which
Right.
I believe has both near, far, and standard red light within it. And I do that for
Yep.
about 20 minutes. So I'm doing those
Yep.
3 to 4 times a week.
Okay. Interesting. And so far, you haven't observed anything other than that it's pleasant, or?
It's pleasant, definitely pleasant. I feel like I feel like it's helping me detox, especially with the
Mhm.
sauna. I'm sweating a lot, which is not something that I do often enough. I don't have a full-blown workout routine where I really get my heart rate up. It's something that I'm still working towards. But
Yeah.
so I feel like it's helping with the detox, and I feel like that's kind of the first. I feel like I've got some layers of shedding to do, if that makes sense. So I don't know how quickly I'm going to see things like, um, really noticeable inflammation reduction or maybe my muscles feeling less tight, things like that. So I'd love to
Right.
hear your thoughts on on my experience. Really quick, Holly B here. I just wanted to interrupt the podcast to ask you for a quick favor. Can you take just a moment to like and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you are listening in on? It makes a world of a difference. And the reach of this podcast, it takes like literally under 10 seconds. So go do that right now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And now back to the episode.
Yeah. No, interesting. So the detox feeling and the sweating, this is far infrared. So even
Mhm.
though your sauna would cover multiple wavelengths, it's uh, wavelengths in the far infrared range that are sort of at 1200 to 1500 nanometers, whereas near infrared is 800. And by reference, 3 to 600 is the whole spectrum of visible light. So again, back to the visual, it's really far. It's very different from far infrared. It's just that infrared is a very big spectrum of energy. And at those wavelengths, then the effect, the physics of it is that it doesn't penetrate your skin no longer, but those wavelengths are so long that they interact with the skin's layer to induce sweat. So you get a quicker sweat response. And so it was an invention or an innovation on the regular sauna, where it's taking much longer to heat up the body and you can more quickly get to that kind of reaction.
Uh-huh.
So I often get the question if infrared saunas are anything related to this.
Uh-huh.
And then I know I see a lot of sort of modern saunas, they put in some lights as well, right? So you
Yeah.
do get some red and near infrared light. There, the real crux is the power of those lights and how close they are to you. And I don't know about which booth you went into, or I don't know the tech specs of that one, but this is what we who are like nerding about the technology and want to make the best possible device, this is what we are constantly looking at and measuring. And so I see a trend especially in the US, about because red light therapy is catching on, that I've seen it at gyms and at some wellness centers and so on. They sort of start putting in some bulbs in the room and offering red light therapy. So there are gyms where you can go and you can work out under a red light. In almost all of those cases, it's not going to give you any benefit at all because the light source is so far away and you need a considerable power. Like the way light travels, your eyes hit it, like it hits your eyes, but it doesn't actually travel with the power. So 80% of the power is lost just a few inches away. So if you're sitting far away from a bulb, you're getting that surface effect, but you're not getting enough power and proximity and energy density to actually go through the skin and stimulate. So that could be, and I don't know, maybe you like, again, you've been sitting in terms of and how far the light source is away, but that could be a factor in making the treatment much less effective,
Uh-huh.
right? There is a certain baseline physics to it. And this is why we designed a device that goes straight on the skin for this reason, because even if you have a panel, which is the most common form, you have to be very close to it to really get all of that power. And if
So
you're not consistent, your dosing changes.
I do typically stand in the red light,
Yeah.
pretty close. Just stand right up next to it. Do
Mhm.
half the time, with my back facing, half the time with my front facing.
Yeah. And if one part of your body is this much further away than the other part of the body, or if you're not consistent, basically your dosing keeps changing,
Right.
right? So I would definitely sort of caution against ambient red light and ambient near light. It can be nice, but it's not really going to sort of get deep into your body and stimulate your mitochondria the way near infrared can.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what else do we need to know about like the red light panels, things like that? Are there's, you're standing in front of these bulbs and some of them
Yeah.
look a little more yellow, some of them are more green. I don't know. It's like I'm just assuming this is working, but
Yeah.
I'm
And
sure
it's
what
not
do we
always
need
easy
to,
to tell. It's not
yeah.
always easy to tell.
I'm sure some brands, of
Usually,
course, are better than others.
yeah, some are, but curiously, almost all the panels that we looked at, and there are many now. They're very, very similar. They're just different brands that have panels. They all come from one of two factories in China, right? So they're differently branded, but they're all more or less the same product, and they're like tiny changes to specs. That's very often what we see. Um, and so often like the professional grade panels will have a really powerful dose, right? If you get enough, like they will be quite energy dense. They often have fans built in to cool down the unit somehow. That is usually a good sign if you are looking for devices. If it has a fan, it is likely to be in the powerful enough range. If it doesn't have a fan, and the most common device we see now in the sort of the lower end of the market, it's an Amazon type product, a kind of a roll up that has lots of LED diodes into it, these kinds of things. For almost all of that is like very, very low output, right? Because
Mhm.
the diodes themselves, it doesn't generate enough heat. That's how you can tell. Like if it doesn't generate enough heat, it's also not going to have enough power and it's not going to go more than like a micrometer through your skin. Right. So this is a real crux to look for. So there are a lot of good professional panels out there. And the only thing I would keep in mind if you want a panel or a full body is just that you are able to keep using it. Compliance is an issue in a way that you have to keep using it all the time and you have to be consistent exactly where you stand in relation to it.
Uh-huh. Got
Yeah.
it. Okay. And I know you were talking about earlier, like the more cosmetic uses. So like
Yeah.
I've seen, and I have friends that have bought the face mask red light
Yeah.
therapies. Are those a gimmick, or those do work just more for collagen and skin healing?
I know some of them for sure work. I haven't actually tried any of them myself, but I know a lot of people have and tried it. Like this is something been at least watching. So sort of as a maven on it, I would say there are definitely those that work, but there are also a lot of masks that don't. And it has to do with the bill, it has to do with LED quality. And it's even more confusingly, it's not always the highest price one is the highest quality, because there's a lot of marketing gimmick in the space and a lot of markups and different approaches to just finding audiences. So I know a few brands that are like consistently ranked high and so on. So I'd encourage to look at reviews and not just the ones that are presented to you, but dig a little bit. There are
Mm-hmm.
some that really do work over time. And the benefit of the mask, if you're only looking for sort of a cosmetic application, then the mask is beneficial because again, it's close to the skin and it's contoured around your face, so you're getting an even dose. Like whereas you can sit in front of a panel and you will get the same effect, but it will be kind of uneven, and you don't know exactly how much you're getting.
Right.
So a good mask should give you just enough to stimulate your skin, but nothing more or less than that.
Got it. Now, I got plenty more questions, but talk to me about your device and why it is different than all the panels and the other things that we were talking about.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we invented it as a wearable, easy to use at home. So ours is shaped like a belt. For those who are watching the video, I can sort of holding it up. So that basically it will fold around any body part. This device is called FlexBeam. And it's the first of its kind that is both portable and then wearable, but it has all the power of a panel, but packed into the power of a belt. And it's designed to kind of optimally curve around like an elbow joint or shoulder or knee, or like basically hug you where you need that extra bit of targeted support, which is usually most people have some place in the body that either has more inflammation or soreness or anything like this. So it has been designed to be targeted, so you get straight on the skin. It doesn't get hot. It's lightly warming. And we invented it this way, and we designed it from scratch, and we made our own device and not relying on the sort of the factory ones in China. So it was like quite a journey to sort of build this in a proper way. But the whole design principle is that it's more effective because it's straight on the skin. Like we can measure that and it's physics, but it's just harder to produce something that goes on the skin. It's easier to produce panels.
Uh-huh.
Right. So this is why for us, it's like this is innovation in the space and we're committed to doing more. But this whole principle of like, you want it straight on your skin, and ability to get deep, that you can get with this device or anything comparable if there exists. I don't know of any others that have this power. And then you can kind of get into, especially like your gut and your spine, for example, is where I would start if you wanted to use FlexBeam for, let's say, a month or two to try it for autoimmune symptoms, like to reduce inflammation over time. The best way to get a systemic boost is then over like your core, basically, because you have more light receptors and you have more mitochondria in your gut and you have more energy lines along the spine. So those are usually the most effective, where basically most of the energy is soaked up. And even though we designed it so it's for targeted use, if you want to use it on your hip and so on, it has a very powerful systemic effect, because your body is an energetic circulatory system that moves very quickly. Right. So there have even been studies showing you can shine light on your left hand and you can like treat your left hand, and your right hand it will increase oxygenation. Right. So the effect of the body, if you put it in the right place, it will go all over your body, and it will in this way stimulate sort of a better immune response and basically give more energy to your core. It is a way I would approach it.
Yeah, I was curious. I was very curious about gut healing
Yeah.
and the red light. And so you're basically telling me that my instinct there was correct.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
so, and it's something we didn't design it for. It's one of those things that occurred to us through user feedback, actually, and we saw early on in surveys that 30% of our users, like, were reporting they were using it for gut health. And there are protocols in this area and stuff, but it's something that has become enormously popular, and there's a broader awareness of gut health, because you would think maybe that's a very narrow thing, but more and more people are becoming concerned about it. And there are really good studies showing the effects on the microbiome and your overall gut health. So using it on your gut makes sense from a mitochondrial explanation in terms of the presence of mitochondria also in your organs and everything around your gut. But for being able to regulate the microbiome over time, it is also like shown to have a clear effect. And usually for interested people around this device who are curious to test it out if it has an effect on the body or not. If you're not in pain anywhere, you don't have a sore muscle or any of these kinds of things, I usually recommend like putting it on your gut for 2-3 days and just keep tabs on how your bowels are doing and your overall mood and all of that stuff over time. In most cases that we know, people do report back that they feel that it has an impact on their core. And over time, if you use this consecutively or consistently follow one of Dr. Zulia's guidelines, for example, for use for a longer time, you start building up your kind of immunal strength over time, and like your body gradually gets more and more energy to do what it does best, which is then to decrease inflammation and to reduce the load on the body to heal more effectively.
I'm wondering if you also, I love what you're saying. This really makes me excited. um, but I'm curious if you also maybe know of any studies, or if the doctor you work with might know of its use in helping with like detox pathways. If it's helping with the gut, I'm wondering if it can also help with, say, liver stagnation, or, just
Yes,
helping promote all of that to flow better.
certainly. Could try to link to a few of the studies for any of your listeners in
Yeah.
the show notes. There's some in that area around, for example, it's like Dr. Zulia often uses it for spot treatment of the liver or
Mhm.
like any particular organ. So again, if you have a device like this guy, you're able to put it straight, like flex beam, you can basically put right over the organ.
Mhm.
Uh, and with the deepest setting on the program, with the most near infrared, you can really stimulate into the liver, right? So for 10
Right.
minutes of this can be very powerful. Uh, so here, like actually, Dr. Zulia has created over 150 different protocols for this. I mean, she's one of the resources we have that we also offer to our customers. We have a membership program that's free to join and where you can get like webinars with her, but also all of these protocols to follow. Because it is important to use it the right way with the right dose, right? That's how you get results. And people who do consistently, we see time and again, those who are like actually do it properly, they all get results. But I'm very aware that there's lots of people trying red light therapy in some way and are not getting results.
Mhm.
Um, so it's important to understand how to use it in the optimal way.
Can you use it too much? Can you overdose on this?
You can use it too much, but you cannot overdose in the sense that what happens if you use it way too much is your body over adapts. So you don't get a response, actually. And this is a bit of a strange kind of effect, but is actually how hormetic stress works, which is similar to you exert anything like plunging into a cold pool, for example, is a temporary hormetic stress that there's also an optimal dosing window for cold plunging that you shouldn't stay out there. Like usually it gives itself because you would freeze to death eventually. Almost. But if you go for too long, your body doesn't respond in the same way as if you go right in the window that it needs to also be able to recover. So it's the same principle that you stay within the certain zone, then you will get a response over time. It's not dangerous to too much. It's just a waste of time or
Got
a
it.
waste of energy.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and interrupt the program for just a hot minute. You know that I'm so passionate about this podcast, but what I'm also really passionate about is helping women with lupus minimize their symptoms, boost their energy so that they can indulge in life again. So if you are a woman who is struggling with lupus, who is sick and tired of being sick and tired, who's struggling to manage your flares, if you're finding that your lupus symptoms are just really getting in the way of you being able to live your life the way you want to, I feel you. I've been there myself and I felt the same way. And what I've found is that there are a certain set of health fundamentals that, once applied, will support you in your foundational health. They will support you in building and maintaining that energy, minimizing flares, and allowing you to again indulge in life and follow your passions. So, if that is something that you are interested in creating for yourself, let's jump on a call together. I will walk you through the process that I use with my clients to get them from sick and tired to strong foundation of health by implementing my Health Bridge protocol. If this is something you're interested in chatting more about, I would love to talk to you. Apply for a free clarity call with me, and I look forward to getting to know you soon. And now back to the episode. Sure.
Yeah.
And is there any like contraindications for using red light therapy with any certain types of conditions? Is there anything that could be exacerbated by using red light therapy?
Extremely few. The only ones that we have on our device is if you have a fresh ink tattoo, to be careful about use over time and not overextending, because it is possible, and this has to be then very fresh and new and then thick with ink. It is possible to develop a burn if you do use it too long, right? This is not a danger for something that is like a small one and an old one and anything, but that's one contraindication. Not to stare into the light for very long. It's not dangerous in itself, but to stare into it like you would stare into the sun, same way after a while, just because it affects your blinking response. Your eyes can't see infrared light. So if you stare into infrared for a long time, it is just your cornea doesn't adapt properly, and you can, at the worst case, be blind, but it's not dangerous
Got it.
that way. Yeah.
Got it.
Otherwise, late stage cancer or pregnancy, the reason we don't recommend is because there is no research to show that it's safe. And the reason there is no research to show that it's safe is because you're not allowed to do research on people who have late stage cancer and pregnancy. So that's a bit of it's a gap basically in our knowledge. So that's a safety precaution. Otherwise, we don't know of any contraindications.
I love that. Hormones. Does red
Yeah.
light therapy, can that affect positive hormone responses? And I'm talking not just sex hormones, but cortisol, melatonin, serotonin, things like that. Adrenaline
It
can
can,
have a regulating effect.
yeah, it can influence some, but not all, and not all equally. So there's some hormonal responses in the body that has to do with pain relief, for example. There are certain pain-soothing hormones you have that are released by red light therapy, which is why it has a very strong pain-relieving effect on a lot of people. Those are specific, sort of specific hormones around pain. The most influential and like the most clearly studied connection between red light therapy and hormone is melatonin. So everything about your circadian rhythm is can benefit from consistent use of red light therapy, or in your case, for example, exposure to sunrise or exposure to sunset, which I missed in my sitting over here, which in your body kind of tunes to this particular kind of energy. So some really interesting study. This is actually Dr. Julia Frost's like biggest sort of research nerding area at the moment, is all these studies showing you have a different kind of melatonin in your, like there's melatonin in all your cells. It is not just the sleep hormone in the pineal gland. It actually is at the subcellular level. It emerges everywhere, and it's a powerful antioxidant too, if you think of it this way. And so red light therapy or near infrared is shown to improve or like stimulate this melatonin, I'd say the rhythm of it through the day. So it doesn't necessarily release more melatonin at the moment when you use it, but it does strengthen the whole circadian rhythm into regulating it more closely. So it's a popular
Yes.
protocol we have is for use for sleep. And then the typical advice is to also use it in the one time in the morning so that it becomes your little sunrise to set your clock, and then closer to bedtime to help nudge you into sleep. And we have a lot of case studies with like Oura rings and so on that show that people fall more deeply asleep, and a lot of users report it. But this is still something that isn't researched at the level of clinical trials and so on. So we are still expanding research in that area, but it does seem to have a very promising effect on sleep.
I love that because sleep is where your body gets the chance to rest and digest. It is the ultimate thing that we need for health
Yeah.
is really quality sleep. And so, I talk a lot about circadian rhythm on my Instagram and with my coaching clients. And,
Hmm.
optimally, in an ideal world, we would like to be up and outside with the sunrise so we can get that daily dose in the morning of the red light. And again in the evening around sunset, we're signaling to our bodies that,
Hmm.
oh, hey, it's time to wake up. Let's start making those hormones. And oh, it's time to wind down for the evening. Let's, dose up the melatonin and, getting off of blue screens at night. So TV watching right before bed. Um, you know, I advocate for putting red light uh, filters on my phone, on my computer, things like that.
Yeah.
So if I do need to do some of that work in the evening, I have that added layer of protection. Granted, it might still stimulate my brain, and that's an issue. But what you're doing with your red light is we can replicate that process. So if your daily life doesn't allow you to get up and out at sunrise and sunset. Your work
Yeah.
schedule is different. Your kid and family life just doesn't function that way. You can still replicate it and come out with the same benefits.
Yeah, it's sort of a little sun in your pocket that way. And I mean, you are blessed living in California where you have like frequent access to sunrise, sunset, like sunlight throughout the most of the year. I live in a part of the world where it's often darker and much darker in wintertime, and where it's also, less direct sunshine, it's more indirect through clouds and so on these periods. So you can kind of weatherproof your sun exposure this way.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I am blessed in San Diego. I do realize that just as far as that circadian rhythm is concerned, I'm so curious, what it's like to be up at the very northern parts of the world where you are, where your winters are extremely long and dark. Your summers, I assume, are long and light. How do
Yes.
how do you
Yeah.
use the red light to help regulate that? Do you do it at different? I assume you're the way you use it fluctuates throughout the year based on kind of more of the natural cycles.
Yeah, I find intuitively that even though like it can be used for anything in the summer, also for like you need anything targeted for muscles or you need anything for like there's reasons to use it, but some of these more systemic effects and the sort of the system boosting response, it comes more naturally in wintertime when it's really dark. It's a warming light, and I mean the way we designed this because it's portable, also you can take it to bed with you, and a lot of users do. I use it this way as well. So you can wake up with it and you can lie there and just have your treatment instead of having to go into a room or have it close by. So the warming nature of the light and the positive effect on melatonin more pronounced during winter months than in summer months.
Mhm.
Uh, Here, I mean, where I live in summer months, it is so bright all the time and it never really gets dark. It just the sky goes dark pink at 3 a.m. and then it's
Wow.
kind of back up again. And then in wintertime, we have sun here from about 10 to 2, right? So people here go to work in the dark and they come home in the dark. So light therapy for like seasonal affective disorder and blue lights and stuff is actually quite prevalent here.
Hmm.
Red light is a more of a new phenomenon, I would say. But
Hmm.
people like knowing you need to be mindful of your light environment and the impact light has on you. right? And to make sure you get enough
Yeah.
if you can't have sunshine.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's, as we kind of close here, let's kind of run down some really optimal uses for your particular device because it, like you said, it can be worn on different parts of the body. So where are you seeing good results? Pulled muscles, broken bones, tendons. Where are you seeing
So
it being very effective?
So near infrared light will have a positive impact, like in the shape of this close to the body, right? Will have a positive impact on any muscular skeletal type condition. So, of course, part of our audience is like athletes, for example, and people who have often are injured. And you don't have to be an athlete to be injured, but it's very common in sports, for example. Where you need something to assist to give more energy to the body during recovery, so it speeds up the whole time and becomes better. So for any such thing where you have an injury or something, that's an obvious sort of starting point, or a certain pain point in the body that needs release, or a certain inflammation point for any targeted spot, it will work for a lot of things, right? For anything related to this. Um, but for an autoimmune case, for example, it's really these core protocols, like systemic protocols, that I would follow. So either, for example, gut health, that will be a sequence of placements around your abdomen, like typically around 20 minutes. But Dr. Zuli has designed a protocol for this, like there's also like how often, but it's typically 20 minutes a day, occasional breaks. She advises every 5 days or so to like take a day or two off so that your body kind of resets a little bit and then still gets a sort of a healing response whenever it's used. Then it's even more effective, right? So you don't even need to do it every day, just consistently over time. So for gut health is one that you can then follow. Sleep, as we just discussed, with the sort of sunrise, sunset kind of twice a day. I think the challenge with red light therapy sometimes is because there's so many uses and lots of us have more than one thing going on or would love to use it a lot, is just to not risk like overdoing it all at once. Again,
Mhm.
because then you don't get an effect. So sometimes it's almost like you choose what to do, focus on for a month and try to use it for that purpose. And not to be, okay, now I did my gut health and then also I'll do my tennis elbow and then I'll also go for my, and then you end up sort of sitting there an hour and you do multiple things. It's not as effective. So systemic responses, immune, gut health, and sleep is probably going to have the most pronounced systemic effects that you could see over time.
So it sounds to me like somebody should have this device on hand, be using it for just overall systemic purposes. And then when something pops up, like a sprained ankle or a
Yeah.
pulled muscle, stop that protocol and start using it specifically for the acute issue at hand. Once that's relieved, then you can go back to the standard protocols.
Yeah. And I wouldn't necessarily say that you have to stop your other protocol. It depends on how much. There is no clear, like, that if you also put it 10 minutes on your knee because your knee is hurting, it's not like you have to stop your gut health protocol. It's more the keeping track of overuse or the tendency to overuse. 40 to 50 minutes a day is sort of the upper limit of what we recommend with this kind of dosage that
Mhm.
we put into this. Because beyond that, an hour plus per day, you start like most people start falling on the other side of that biphasic dose response, like the other side of that curve where it just flattens out and you're
Mhm.
not getting an effect. And you spend so much time with that device. And I mean, that's a shame to waste it. So we use it targeted and specifically, but then you can treat multiple things at the same time, if that makes sense.
It does. It does make sense. Is there anything that we have not talked about yet that you want to
Oh,
bring
there's
up?
tons. There's so much more you can do with this. But then it sound like an infomercial, almost. When you talk about red light therapy, this is one of the most confusing things I think around there, and why there's also a lot of skepticism, and there's a healthy skepticism to some of these claims, because the list is just so long of things you could use it for, because it has this kind of it's because it has this systemic impact, if you will, right? So there's a whole host of symptoms that could, if you use it correctly, go away. But this makes it hard to approach sometimes because it's just almost too good to be true.
Right.
Yeah, or that's almost what it sounds like. But if you use it the right way, it can be very, very powerful. And I'd encourage all your listeners who want to learn more on our website, recharge.health. We have separate sections on scientific studies and also case studies, and we try to share all of our ongoing research. And the membership program we have with Dr. Julia Frost is a fountain of knowledge where you can get really can get deeper and make sure that you're using it correctly and good follow-up just to learn. And if anyone wants to try, we do also offer like 60-day money-back guarantee and all of these things because people genuinely love this device and it works for most people. So that's the, end of if I have to do a sales pitch, it is a really good investment in health for your family. And the reason we sort of set out to do this is because we believe this kind of device and even smarter versions of it that belong to the future will one day be in everybody's homes as part of as a natural part of the medicine cabinet in any family, because you can use it for so many things. So most of our users, they buy it for a specific reason, something they want to try, whether it's a pain or a condition. And then they discover that it's useful for a whole lot of things, for bouncing back from a flu or for that accident when it happens or that small injury, or someone in your household is more prone to something else, etc. So the multi-use effect over time just makes it kind of a stayer for most of the people that are trying it, and embedding red light therapy in your life in some way or having it regularly, I think is pretty good choice for your health if you don't overdo it.
Yes, I love that. Well, thank you so much for educating our listeners on this. I know it is a, complicated topic, but one that I think is so important to learn about. And it's another really effective tool to have in our tool cabinet, as long as we're using it the right way, like you said, and using a device that's actually effective. So I can't wait to continue playing around with red light therapy and see what benefits I find from it. I'm very, very interested in your device. So I'm sure we'll chat more about that after we finish recording. Thank you for
Sounds
being
good.
here. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate the opportunity to share some of the knowledge of this.
Of
Thank you.
course. So for those of you that are actually watching this video on YouTube and you can actually see what the device looks like, when I first looked up the website, I was like, this is so small. Why wouldn't I want a full body red panel? Wouldn't that be more effective? Because it can get me from head to toe versus just, in this small little area. But after doing more research on his website and talking to Bjorn for this episode, I'm totally convinced that you do not need a full body red light panel. I'm not putting them down. Obviously, I'm using one, as I talked about in the episode, but I think it's really cool that you can have this small portable device that you can travel with. You can have in bed with you, like you said, for morning and night protocols, and something that you can use for very targeted and specific treatments, such as like a pulled muscle. I mean, I was telling him after recording that I like literally the day he came across my inbox to look at as a potential podcast guest, I had pulled a muscle in my back really bad. And I saw this device and it would it was perfect to put right over that particular muscle to help it heal. And I was like, oh man, I wish I already had one of these at the ready. And that's kind of the point, is to have this device just on hand to use, on daily protocols and to use when these acute instances happen. But regardless of whether you choose to try out the Flex Beam, Bjorn's device, or you choose to get your red light therapy by going outside, morning, night, and throughout the day, to get that dose of red light on your skin and in your eyes and use that as a nutrient. Or you're going to a wellness center like I am and using the full body red panels. I really want to encourage you to look at red light as a very viable long-term therapy. And the reason why it's so important is because your body was designed, literally designed, to use red light as a nutrient. It was designed to use red light to function properly. Your body needs red light to create health in the body, to create healthy cellular function, to create mitochondrial function. We didn't live like we do now for all of human existence until very recently, right? We were always outside. We were always in tune with all the different wavelengths of light and different colors of light throughout the day. And that's how our bodies were designed to function. It's only been so much more recently that we stick ourselves indoors under blue lights all day long and barely get outside to interact with the earth. So, what is that doing? That is creating dysregulation in the body because we are stepping away from the natural sources of sunlight and red light and other things, grounding, touching the earth, those things that are actually we are built to interact with. And those things recharge our physical batteries. So, again, daily life as it is right now isn't always convenient or applicable for us to be able to get out and use the actual sun cycles to help regulate these systems in the body. So having access to a red light therapy device such as the Flex Beam or another one that you choose is a very, very powerful tool if used correctly and effectively. So please check out Bjorn's website, recharge.com. I'll have it linked in the show notes for you. Send us questions here. If you're on YouTube or wherever you're listening, you can drop comments with questions, or you can reach out to me on Instagram or reach out on their website to inquire more if you have more questions. But we hope that you found this educational and enlightening. And I just want to encourage you that, if you are on this health journey, and I'm sure you are, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to this episode. I just want to encourage you to try different things. You never know what's going to be the thing that makes a difference for you until you try it and experiment. So I encourage you to continue on your journey. I'm here for support. I look forward to talking to you about more amazing health and wellness and mindset topics on the next episode of the Health Bridge podcast.